But now I just met Thaddeus again for the first time in a long time today, and you're running for?
Florida's Commission of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And tying back in with the program today, I also served on the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force Working Group, going back to the early 2000s. One thing tonight, Mr. President, today, we must get to the table. We should have been at the table. We've had the language in there, we have new language in there, improved language to get us to the table, but the people were not at the table. Mr. Right. Oh. We are not.
I know that there's going to be a point today when we have panel discussions and we can talk about that. However, I'm happy to indulge your statement.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do it later. Thank you.
Okay. I really like the focus on having people in the room who have the track record and the background and the history so that you can help us identify where the pressure points are. So then should we move on to the next item on the program? Okay. And that next item on the program is going to be the message from the muck. Oh, and I must say, in introducing our friend Cynthia Larimore, a more committed community activist and humanitarian we can hardly imagine. I mean, Cynthia has headed many environmental justice organizations. She has testified on behalf of the people who live around Lake Okeechobee, which is one of the focal points of the Everglades restoration. She has brought the plight of the people over and over to elected officials from the city and local and county level all the way up to the United States Congress. In fact, she was a key speaker at one of the town hall meetings that Congresswoman Meek had before she included that legislation in WORDA 2000. And Cynthia's spirited presentation in opposition to the presentation that was made by people from the Army Corps of Engineers, etc., emphasizing that there was no threat to the health of the people in the Belglades area and the areas around Lake Okeechobee, when Cynthia was able to bring the counterpoint to that and to say how many instances of liver and kidney disease was rife in the community because the people were actually drinking that water from lake that was the source of their drinking water. So I don't have to tell you her story, but I want to tell you that this woman is a hero in my mind in more ways than I can say, and I thank you.
Check is waiting for me. Good morning to you all. My name is Cynthia Larimore, and I am born and raised in Belglade, Florida. Yay. I'd like to, before I start, to really give Al, thank him for allowing me this place on the program. And I would like to, for those of you who are native to Broward County, lift up the name of Leola McCoy. And I'd also like to pay homage to, in her absence, Congresswoman Carrie Meek, who gave me my first significant stage when it came to environmental justice and the health impacts that the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan would have on the citizens of Belglade, Pahokee, South Bay. We call it SERP. They say it's Everglades Restoration. I consider it a growth management plan, which has nothing to do with restoring the Everglades, nor protecting blue herons, nor panthers in the Everglades. It is a project and a plan that ignores any consequences except for what the mission and purpose of the Corps of Engineers, the South Florida Water Management District, have kept in disguise and undercover for over 20 years. So I am not necessarily a proponent of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, although I do believe in the environment and know that there there's a very close and necessary association with our environment and how we and our health are impacted when it is abused. I'd like to say that over the past several decades, neither the South Florida Water Management District, the EPA, DEP has provided protection to the communities, specifically around the Glades area, when it comes to water quality, violating both the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act, that they are the proponents also of lessening the regulations which would protect our health. If we understand anything in the state of Florida, we need to understand very pointedly that water and water quality are critical issues, and that unless we take opportunity within WRDA 2000, the Water Resources Act of 2000, to push that point forward, what will continue to happen is that we will be continually left out of the processes. Our government officials on the local level will continue to be lied to, and then our health will continue to be jeopardized. Frank mentioned that if it's in the public interest, then the decision occurs in the public. I would like to offer into that discussion that if it's in the public interest, the discourse and the decision take place in view of the public. We can no longer afford to allow discourse to take place at private times and public-private meetings where we are left and our vital and critical voice, our own personal stories are left out so that those decisions are made void of what is essential for us to continue as people in this country. I don't know if that's my introduction or whatever, but anyway. WRDA 2000, you all know, I have not done this for several years because my offerings to the public discourse and discussion and decisions was not appreciated. Did not and does not mean that I was not and am not correct even today. Please let us understand that the proposal of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, even though it's a growth management plan, offers a severe jeopardy to all of our future drinking water sources. And not only are they in danger now, but the actual mechanisms and mechanics associated with the implementation and full operation of SERP proposes to jeopardize what could be our drinking water sources in the future. So we need to understand and know, find a place, find somebody, somewhere, that vocal minority, to help us understand where we are, where it is the potential that we could be, unless that course is shifted. The shifting of the course within what is proposed for Everglades restoration is absolutely critical. The Everglades will never be as it was before. Let's understand that. The relationship between man and the natural environment as it existed before the EAA, before the farming, before we populated the area, will never be the same. So let's not hear that in a way that we say we're going to get the Everglades back. Whatever modifications that we can make, whatever it is that we can do to tweak the plan so that we're able to live in a way that is complementary both to man and the environment, is what we need to strive for. We cannot strive for that with erroneous science from the South Florida Water Management District, from the Corps of Engineers, from EPA, and any other governing authority. And please let us understand that inside of everything that's done, there is fallacy. Frank talked about the interpretation. When the interpretation gets back to the office and administrative policies are set upon what that office interprets, we need to understand what was written. not what is being interpreted. So I leave you just saying that we do need to come together. We need to be informed. We need to understand. It's not really rocket science. A lot of it is common sense. So if we, being people who live and breathe and walk day-to-day function, take care of our families, perform on our jobs, if we can do those to a way that's satisfactory, we can take that common sense, sit down and look at what they think is complicated language, come up with a way that works for us so that we can survive, so that we can be healthy, so that what's implemented, what's instituted, what's proposed does not further provide jeopardy to us. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our children. There's a native saying that says, unto the 7th generation, we have to begin thinking unto the 7th generation, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. If we do not do that, we fall short on our responsibility as human beings, as parents, and as people in this society. Thank you.
Wow. You can tell it's a close-knit community of people who've been working on this issue. And I just want to reiterate what my sister Cynthia said. We must be thinking 7 generations, because we are the ancestors of the future. We are the ancestors of the future. And I don't know how many of you came in to this conference today with the expectation of hearing so many of the details about what needs to be adjusted with the Everglades Restoration Plan. But I think that if you don't know this, then the likelihood is that, I shouldn't say you'll buy the party line and then we'll all suffer because you don't know what needs to be adjusted. But I hope that you're able to assimilate this information, and before the end of the day, you'll have a fairly good picture of the fact that we consider it vital to continue efforts to restore the Florida Everglades, which is the source of our drinking water to a large degree. It is the engine of our life support system, as it helps to even regulate our weather patterns. It's the Everglades ecosystem. Everglades National Park alone is 1.5 million acres. So 1.5 million acres of undisturbed nature is going to have a powerful regulating effect on our environment. So for that reason alone, we all need to be very, very concerned about what happens to it. But the greater Everglades ecosystem, where the restoration is taking place, is even more vast than that. So it has the direct implication on all of our lives. I want to mention that when we got started, when we first heard about Everglades restoration in 1995, at that time, the price tag was $5 billion. $5 billion. And Frank sagely said, as we saw how things were progressing or not, that before this thing is over, it's going to be $20 billion. And I think what I read last week is that it's up, the projection now is $17 billion. So it's a moving target. And I know that in our current reality, in our current economic situation, the word billion doesn't have the resonance that it used to, but still, multiple $1 billion of our tax dollars being ostensibly focused on restoring a resource upon which we all depend. A couple of things should be clear. Everybody should be part of the income stream that flows from that money, so that a rising tide lifts all boats. And also, if there are health issues and there are issues of efficacy with the process that is being employed, then we all need to be involved because we want to make sure that this thing works right. And again, when we heard about Everglades restoration in